60 Minutes Overtime.
Putin's called the sanctions akin to a declaration of war. Is it?
You know, we need to stay sober with our rhetoric. We don't want to engage in provocative language. I'm not going to do that.
This week on 60 Minutes, we reported on the unprecedented economic sanctions the U.S. and its allies have levied on Russia in response to Russia's war in Ukraine. Guy Campanile was the producer on this story.
We talked to Dalip Singh at the National Security Council. He designed the sanctions. We asked Singh about Russia's relationship with China and what might happen if China helps Russia get around the sanctions.
Look, Russia's economy is 1/10 the size of the European Union's economy. It's 1/15 the size of America's economy. China is a rising power. It wants to engage with the world. Russia is a declining power. It's isolating itself from the world. So China may want Russia as a junior partner to supply cheap oil and gas, but let's not pretend it's anything more.
We also spoke with Kristalina Georgieva, the managing director of the International Monetary Fund. She told us she doesn't think it would be wise for China to risk getting entangled with Russia.
The problems China faces today are so significant that it is very unlikely they would seek even more problems for their economy. Let's remember that growth in China has slowed down dramatically, and right now Omicron is hitting China with the strongest wave since the beginning of COVID.
I mean, China always says what's best for China, right? So let's say that they decide for whatever reason that they're going to step in, that there are sanctions against China. If there are secondary sanctions against China, then what happens? What is the impact?
We would see more supply chain disruptions, and that certainly is going to impact the global recovery.
They are not as insulated as
China is very integrated in the world economy. In fact, China trades most with Europe, next with the United States. Trade with Russia is $150 billion, a fraction of their global trade. So it is very, very likely that they would be concentrated on protecting their ability to inject resources into their own economy versus protecting the $150 billion they trade with Russia.
The global economy is still trying to recover from COVID disruptions. Inflation in the U.S. is now at a 40-year high. We asked Kristalina Georgieva about the economic outlook.
The poorest countries were very significantly already impacted by the COVID crisis. What we are seeing is this dangerous divergence in economic fortunes. Rich countries were able to help their businesses and their people much more. Poor countries, much less. So they are already exhausted. So in these poor countries, people are very dependent on food prices, on energy prices.
It's a very thin margin that they're living
and
on.
in that very thin margin, it is now being blown out. A very simple message. War in Ukraine means hunger in Africa, because Africa imports from Russia and Ukraine big part of wheat and corn. With prices jumping up, there would be more food insecurity in the most difficult places. Just think of countries like Yemen or the Horn of Africa, where food insecurity is already present.
How quickly do you anticipate that we're going to see those pictures we know will be coming of people starving, of these countries really being, pushed to their knees?
Fast. Why? Because energy and food prices translate into inflation very quickly. And the impact is significant. Here in the United States, 10% increase in energy prices means 0.3% increase in inflation. When this translates into inflation, then what often happens is confidence drops and people rush to the store. By doing so, they push prices only higher.
Could this set off a global recession?
We are going to revise our projections for growth for this year downwards, but they would be still in positive territory. Let's remember, the Russian and Ukrainian economies together are 3.5% of the world economy. What we are more concerned is the sequencing of events. You have a war, prices go up, inflation accelerates. What do central banks do? They will have to tighten financial conditions. How they calibrate between fighting inflation and not throwing cold water on the recovery is going to be a tremendously difficult task.